Okay, we're in business. Good morning. This is Simon with ToughTrader.com. Quick legal disclaimer: past performance is not indicative of future results. There's substantial risk to trading futures. You can lose all your money and derivatives. Please make sure you know what you're doing before you trade, right? Make sure that you have a winning strategy and that you know how to stop trading when things are not going right. The entire purpose of this room is to help you end the boom-bust cycle and gain consistency in your trading. The inability to do that, right? One-hit wonders do not count in trading because they turn around and take your money right away. Again, this is for educational purposes only, and I'm basically sharing my trade plan with you in hopes that it'll make you a better trader. But there is absolutely no reason to follow me blindly, learn my style, and then melt it into your own. Okay, overnight, ES is actually the ugliest one. NQ is not so ugly yet, minus 51. The only reason I say it's not so ugly is relative to where it's come from. It's not very ugly, but it's clearly risk off. It's a substantial gap down. Okay, so I have a couple questions whenever there's a substantial gap down. Let me go over to my charts real quick. Here we go. First question that I have, and here I'm going to draw all over this. I'm just going to duplicate this so I don't have to worry about messing up my chart for the day and my key areas. So oil's up 20 cents. After getting slaughtered on Friday. NQ down 51, ES down 18. It's clearly a risk-off environment. There's concerns in the bonds. I know that there's some concerns just from what I've read. I'm sure John can, Peter can update me on that if there's anything that I need to be more aware of. I expect an attempted responsive buy in NQ early in the day because that's what they've been doing every day. And these guys just don't die easily, right? They just learn that you're rewarded in ES and NQ for buying the dip. And I have no doubt that out of the gate, someone will try. My assumption would be that someone will try to, or someone's will try to get a responsive buy back up. I am willing to short today if the setup comes, right? Maybe not so early in the morning, but if we get a substantial rotation, tick divergence, and the algo sets up. So there's a bunch of things that have to trigger there for me, but I am willing to look short, and I am willing to buy puts, and I'm willing to buy calls. I'm going to trade. I'm looking at a two-sided market today, okay? So the first thing that I see from Friday is we've now trapped traders. So when I look at this chart, I try to go from the most basic ideas and concepts, right? So when you look at this, number one, this was our old breakout area right over here. Kind of hard to argue with that. 27.45, right? That's not that far away from where we're trading. It's within 20 points of reach. I expect responsive buyers near 27.45. Will it be exactly 27.45? No idea. But it makes sense if you look at every technical book on the face of the earth: breakout, backside test, continuation, right? The number two question I have, or that would be a concern, is where are the support and resistance areas? And remember how I pointed out on CL that there's no points of control that when you get to areas where there's no naked points of control, the purple and blue lines, you can travel through. 27.51, which is only 15 points away from where we're currently trading, 16 points away, is the first naked TPO point of control, okay? The first combined both naked TPO point of control and volume point of control occur at 27.37. Both of those are within reach because they're both within 20 to 30 points intraday. I would definitely want to be a responsive buyer at 27.37. There's a naked settle price, there's a naked volume point of control, and there's a naked TPO point of control. You want to have that written down there, that is a key location. There's a lot of stuff that will attract other traders to want to be responsive buyers there. You want to make sure that you have the ability to put on risk at that point. So why is that important? Okay, that is important because if you smoke yourself early in the morning and then you get your stretch later in the day, I hear it consistently, often, and very common. I took losses early in the day, and when the big rotation down set up, I could not take the risk, or I took the risk off for a point because of the big rotation down. So 27.51, 27.37 3/4, those are your key areas. Other areas that are of interest prior to getting to that point. So first of all, I want to know a couple things. 27.70 1/4. if I get to the end of the first hour and we have not traded back above 27.70 and a quarter, my bias becomes to the short side, assuming we haven't already extended all the way down, right? My bias becomes to the short side if we fail to overlap value, particularly if we don't trade over value at all. Very, very bearish, actually, okay? And usually ends up, I'm going to give you an example of this. It's been a little while since we've had this, okay? But when you have a day where you cannot close, so the 29th is the last example of that. See, this is the first completion of the first hour occurs right on this bar. These are 30-minute bars. Inability to get back into prior day's value, which is right up here, right? And you end up with a long liquidation. I want you to notice something. You could have skipped the whole hour and still had that trade to the downside, right? So whether it's set up or whether we captured that or cognizant enough that, hey, there's a big rollover potential coming there, you had the first hour. Notice that they drove up. They attempted to fill. They could not fill the gap. They could not get back into prior day's value. You should have a checklist for this, guys. That is really bearish when it sets up. I'll show that to you over here when you have a combination of a gap down, inability to close back in within the first hour. Even on days where it balances, you tend to get consistent pushes to the downside, and then it's not abnormal at the end of the day to get short covering. I'm going to give you one. So you have an example on 515, and I'm going to give you one other example of that. So not a gap down. Not a gap down. Let's see where there's a clear gap that didn't fill. Here we go. Again, end of first hour, inability to close back into value. I'm talking about 419. And you can see what we ended up with in the AM was a push down, and then afternoon it pushed back up. This U-turn is very common, as I put out a video over the weekend. I would not be shocked by an afternoon U-turn. But if I see this consolidating and doesn't get back into value within the first hour, it's gone. If it opens up and drives straight up and that's the bottom and we're ripping, I miss out. I'm not really hurt by that idea or concept. Is totally not upsetting to me, and I'm good with it. Okay. So I just want to let you know. Hold on one second. Need to check something. There we go. No worries. Okay. So where am I going to next with this? Down, push, around, goes around. Okay, so let's go next on the checklist. Where's support if we do hold underneath this 2770? Well, if you look, there's an anomaly right here. You got to get familiar with these anomalies. The over-under from 2758 to 2754, that is a decent support area. It also would be about a 10-point rotation down this AM. Would not surprise me to see that getting tagged sometime this morning and finding an initial buy response. Why? If we get down there, that's minus 30. It's a logical place. This goes back to the 6-6 profile. It was a triple distribution. 1, 2, 3. That middle distribution held. I would expect this bottom. So you want to write down 54.50 to 58. I expect some type of response from that location. Okay. And then finally, if we get below that 54.50, there's that open TPO. You got to make an adjustment for that 51 right below it, which is why I often talk about the anomalies, getting the over under. If you get underneath 58, get to 51, then you get back over 58. The backside test into that 58, 54 should generate an attempt back into that. That's where you would get that slingshot back to 2770 and 2776, right? If we get underneath that, there's a huge anomaly. So again, all the way down at 2738, and there's a little itty bitty tiny one, which everyone always wants to ignore these anomalies here at 49 to 47. Again, because of the stretch, that's a valid location. And I would look to see if I couldn't get hooked up at that point for a roll back down to the downside is what I would back up to the upside. And that's about as far as I expect it to stretch. That's a huge stretch that puts you down. If you get down into this 2747 from 27.65. It puts us down 40 on the day. And I am looking for tick divergence into those areas to help me make my trading decisions and see if I can't get a roll back up to the upside. I'm looking for the over under on the anomalies. I'll call them when I see them. And then the last piece that I'm going to use, guys, is intraday. I want to show this because it's so important. And normally I don't go into this great a detail with the deltas and the algorithm, but I think it's important. And I had a coaching session with someone from Friday. I want to show you all this so that you can this makes sense to you. Okay, and I'm going to go back to Friday only since I have a couple of minutes here. I'm not trading NQ today, although I expect it to be pretty Wild West type of trading. Okay, look at the biggest anomaly when it prints on the biggest delta. This isn't automatic, right? But that's a big stretch. See when you get underneath that biggest delta, the backside test, how it rejects. It's not automatic, but man, it does give you a good clue as to where you might have your trade get set up, right? It's certainly not a shocker when you see that. When you look at the bottom, right? Remember on the way down, I highlighted this and I said, I'm going to move this and I'm going to remove this for a second. Hold on a second. It's W. Okay. Look on the way down. See how this becomes your biggest negative delta on the way down, that 1950? Okay. If you highlight that, see, once we get over that, what we did was we took this one and we took this one right here, right? I had to fix that, and I didn't fix it this weekend. Okay. See how we use those two as backside support areas right there? It's really important that you understand that that's what happened. That's what had to, this number right here, this delta, once you got above it, see how the delta is all pumped up as soon as you got above it because you trapped all the shorts. This was actually the biggest delta, and this was the second biggest. Okay, and this string down all the way from top to bottom. The biggest delta came at the low, right? But then above it, you had to figure out, could you get above this 1950? See how we already we printed it, backside tested it, couldn't get back above, rejected. Then we printed a new high delta. We then close above. They push in. See how we got a big, that bright blue delta tells me that was a big delta. The algo's doing the heavy lifting for me, and it gets over this delta. That's what frees it up. And then we come back. This is the delta that broke us out, right? See how we're going to come right back to it and backside test it right there. See how we get that star that lifts us up? And that's what pushes us to the upside. Now, I want to address Friday for a second. I have an unfounded or founded fear of trading on non-farm payrolls and quad witching. ES turned out to be really good on Friday. I assume it's going to be pretty good today. I am looking for these patterns intraday because this tells me what's going on after everything has gotten set up and established. Does that make sense? I am looking for them to confirm, right, that I'm getting backside tests, and then I'm looking for setups in those areas that'll help me make those trading decisions, right? I am not looking, right, to reinvent the wheel in any way, shape, or form on these trades. Okay, I'm letting the market come to me. I'm letting the market intraday tell me where the buyers and sellers are trapped. And then I'm using those zones, what I just went through and pointed out intraday, that tells me where these guys are trapped. What I find a lot of traders want is they want to, hey, just give me the level and let me trade that level. And what I'm finding is the way to make the easier money is for when the market tells me intraday, hey, these guys have been trapped, or hey, intraday, these guys haven't been trapped, and there's still plenty of room to run one way or the other. So it's funny, most guys I talk to, so that's my trade plan for the day. I'm looking for the stretch down into those key locations, tick divergence at those areas, and then have the algo trigger me in because it makes me money consistently, right? And then if that does not occur, if we actually turn around, gap up, and run, I'll wait for later in the morning for a potential short to set up. I'm looking at the end of the first hour. If we haven't overlapped, I'll be short into the downside, right? If we have not overlapped value within the first hour, I'm looking for excuses to short and stretch those shorts to the downside, and I'll be looking to buy puts. When we're 30, 40, 50 points in the hole, if we get down there, I'll be looking the opposite. I'll be looking to buy the calls for pushes back up, and I will let the algo trigger me. One thing I'm very sensitive to today, guys, is the market tripping over itself and showing no counter rotation back to the upside. I don't want to take consistent. Hold on a second. Wow. Okay. I don't know why I am getting all these, but that's fine. I am looking for, right, a pattern where we're tripping over and people are fighting to get out and they're not lifting. Like there's only 2 or 3 points of lift. That always concerns me. And I will be very, very sensitive to that pattern again, because I think it's a big deal. That's all I can say. Where they're just giving 1 or 2 point counter rotations for 10-point rotations down. So again, if you'll skip past the first hour, your odds of getting smoked either way get reduced significantly, and it's much easier to read the algo and get the results off of the algo from that way. So no trading in the first half hour. If it runs away from me either direction, I don't have an issue with that. I don't have a FOMO issue there, and I'll just let it work itself out. Does anyone have questions? I know I'm not extremely clear on what I'm looking for, and the reason why is that we've stayed pegged to the low the entire evening, right? We haven't responded back up, and I get concerned when that happens, where there's a lack of counter lift going into the open. Usually that's indicative of a long liquidation situation. We're too far in the hole for me to short. I need a counter rotation up, and I don't have enough clarity to get long. And I think that's a fair assessment. Usually on Mondays, we end up with balance. Maybe today's different, but when I feel something's afoot and I need to be responsive to that, I know that usually I'm going to get pretty big stretches down, and I'll let the algo trigger me in. That's, at the end of the day, that's my trade plan for the day. There's no question about it. And what you'll notice, by the way, I want to show you all something here. Okay, see how those areas, those are the same areas from Friday. See how they acted as support again overnight, right? See that? They tried to hold them twice. This whole 72 to 69 area. See how we came in, responded off the top? Those are the same places that they left a signature overnight. And then when we got underneath there, we have not been able to regain it. I at least want to see us above 72 this morning to give any kind of idea that we're going to be able to push back to the upside. Otherwise, the trend is down. VWAP overnight is 2770, and I'll wait till they make a mistake and give me tick divergence and let them push back up. I'm not in a rush this morning. We should have some really good trades and a lot of profit. Particularly the options trade should set up really nicely this week. It looks like volatility is coming back in and wide rotations are coming back in. I expect to have good trading days. Expect me to take scales when I'm up 30% on my options to help pay for them. That was the only, if I did anything that I would have wanted to correct from last week, that's what I would have wanted to correct. And really, that's about it, guys. So I'm ready to go to work. Any questions? 6 minutes till the open. CL's trying to push. It's just gotten into a grind. They haven't let it go. Floor's open if anyone wants it. Guys, I think you can wait till after the first hour and still have some really great trades today. I don't think you have to go and grab it right out of the open. I have no doubt someone will try to drive NQ up. 0, as a matter of fact. Okay. I have this, and I have this up. And we'll go from there. I plan to work primarily off of the algo today. So while paying attention to the rotation sizes. And right now, what's going on with CL, the way they're driving it like that, you got too many shorts buried, and they're just tripping over each other, short squeezing and then rolling it back down, short squeezing, rolling it back down. So opening print coming up in just a couple minutes, guys. Guys on YouTube, thanks for joining me. If y'all have any questions, you can email me at toughtrader.com. Excuse me, at tradertough@gmail.com. I always get that backwards. And I expect the algos to pay us today, so pretty relaxed. The only thing I can't tell is if this is a head fake to the downside and we're going to end up, a lot of times when we sit like this, inventory is obviously short overnight, and you usually have to shake out that inventory. What I really want to see is if when we push into the 69.72 area, this is the real test, right? If we can push up into that 69.70 here, I can't see this. We can push up into this. This is where the real test comes in for the bulls. If they fail out of this area, there's just not a lot of anomalies below to help them out. That's all there is to it. So I appreciate y'all joining me this morning, guys.